Welcome back in to Talking Fitchburg, a special update here on this Friday, March 27th. I'm joined now by your fire chief of Fitchburg, Joe Pulvermacher. Joe, hello. Welcome back.
Jeremy, thank you.
Like your hairdo for today, looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you just get out of bed, Joe?
I can tell you, I think I shared this with a couple of friends, is the fact that I am under a brand new appreciation for my barber. I do think that he is essential services.
I also am getting pretty lengthy. My hair starts to curl if I let it go too long. So
yeah, I didn't want to say anything.
Also, I got a lot of grays coming in, but that's here or there. Joe, on all seriousness here, we're working on getting an update. You serve two roles. Not only are you the fire chief of Fitchburg, you're also our emergency manager.
Emergency Management Director.
Director. Oh, I'm sorry. Title is everything. Director.
Yeah.
Let's kick things off here on the fire side of things. Yesterday, a lot of people may have saw that burning permits are suspended. And I wanted to start in with what does this mean for the city of Fitchburg and for the state of Wisconsin? If you could bring those together for us.
Well, the city of Fitchburg actually operates cooperatively with the DNR. We provide fire services for them. They do have their own capability of fire protection, but because of the fact that we're sort of this suburban rural area, we work as a cooperative. And with that, we try to follow the rules as similarly as possible. So when the DNR put something out that they were going to suspend all burning permits, and I shouldn't even say all burning permits, residential, private burning permits, then we just wanted to follow suit so that we're practicing that consistency. What we are allowing is if there is, let's say, a prairie restoration company who is able to submit a burn plan and is bonded and insured, we do allow those things to happen, but the private residential variety of burn permit we're suspending at this time.
And why right now? Why?
Because if things get out of control, right? I mean, at least with a prairie restoration company, they come with a force of people who are prepared to put out fire and have been trained to put out fire. Generally, in our public realm, the private residential realm, if things get out of hand, now we're calling in people to be able to address those fire situations. And we're just trying to minimize the amount of time that we're asking people to spend outside of their home. And that includes our responders. So that's just one reason for us to do that. The consistency is the other.
Absolutely, and I would suspect limiting any, keeping you guys in-house and ready for any emergency, obviously, is top priority, and keeping your men and women safe from the COVID-19.
Right. Now, this doesn't prevent somebody from having a small cooking or sort of like a campfire in the backyard. As long as it's by ordinance for personal heating or cooking, then it's still allowed without permit.
All right. Switching gears and talking about you guys staying in service, something that united this past week was a light type of, I'm not going to call it a ceremony, but a great gesture from all fire and EMS across the state, and you guys participating in it, symbolizing that you're there, you're ready to go, and people in return could turn their porch lights on and do it, both Fire Station 3 and 2, opening the doors, turning the lights on. Joe, why does this mean so much to the fire industry and public safety?
I think it's just that social presence still to be able to say that we're well aware of the fact that there's isolation, but throughout isolation, through that time of isolation, you can find creative ways to reach out to each other, and this is just one way that we could do that. I think this one originated in Iowa and sort of grew, and then just a last-minute notification to area fire departments through the State Fire Chiefs Association many fire departments participated. We were just one of them.
Yeah, and glad you guys were able to do it and capture it too. So, normal circumstances, we probably would have been there to join in on it, but last minute, gotta like it. Joe, putting on your emergency management director hat, what is the status today as far as your standpoint thus far in response and where we're headed?
I think if we look at things that are happening around the country, we know enough that this is of concern. We're taking the right measures as far as creating the Safe at Home initiative through the state, or following it anyway. Just trying to stay on top of what our response looks like, and that we have the capabilities of addressing the things that are likely to happen with an increased workload. We do know that we're trying to reduce the number of calls that we would respond to in a medical situation, along with Fitch-Rona, to avoid unnecessary contact. So there's a number of things that are happening in advance of the numbers that we project that we're going to see, or we think that we're going to see. That are basically in line with what we're seeing not only throughout the country, but what we've seen throughout the world.
Is it safe to say that as we look at numbers and stuff week to week, there's a lot of stuff out there, and we've learned through the series of interviews today with the public safety, it's hard to get. There's so much information coming in, but as far as numbers go and people being tested and whatnot, we can assume it gets worse because we don't know. The people that are infected right now may not know it. Their symptoms kind of come, and this just keeps on growing. How do you take that perspective?
So I think one of the things that we are just we keep our eyes open. I mean, we're not approaching this. We're not trying to be naive. We know that the potential exists for this to get much worse. So just being open-minded to the fact that our response is going to look differently than it has in the past, and to be able to address and adjust to these variables. We just don't know what we don't know. We have an idea that we are going to have fluctuations throughout the United States as far as some hotbeds and some areas that are not affected as much. All we can do at this point is to try to predict what the worst case scenario looks like and get in front of it. And that's sort of what emergency management does. So basically, we have a couple of different arms. It's the preparedness, it's the response, and the recovery. And right now, we're sort of in between preparedness and response, because we're doing a little bit of both right now. And some of the stuff that we're working with, we couldn't have predicted a year ago. Not from the local aspect. I mean, we also make sure that we are tuning into the industry experts. It's real easy to get caught up in some of the things that are being shared with non-experts. And the way that information is shared can sometimes excite a population. I can tell you right now that in Dane County, we're seeing a spike in the 20 to 44-year-old age group. I mean, that's where we're seeing the most exposures. Now, whether those are critically ill or not, I don't have that information, and I would suspect that they're not critically ill. But the exposures and the positive tests are coming back in that age group. So those are things that we want to make sure that we get the message out, because we do know that some young people feel as if they are able to basically rise above.
Invincible, right?
Yeah, the invincible would be a great way of putting it. They're not immortal. Their superpowers are limited. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that people are aware of the fact that even though they may not have extreme symptoms, the people that they come in contact may. And that's what we're trying to get in front of, is those that have the compromised immune systems, and those that are older in age, to the point where they may have a more significant reaction than the younger population.
So much information, as you said, out there, but that's very critical to know that age group, especially in this area. And what you see is these pockets pop up all over the place. And I think you've got to assume that either you have been exposed or you just sit at home and follow the orders.
Right. So here is where we try to educate in advance of response. We try to make sure that people are well aware of the risks that are associated, so that those things can be discussed productively. From our standpoint, though, another good part about emergency management and what my job is in that role is to tap from our network. So well in advance of what has ever happened with the coronavirus, we had established our partnerships with Dane County Emergency Management in the state of Wisconsin. We know people that work there. We are not in this alone, and a lot of those things that are happening from an information standpoint are done because of the fact that we have a great working relationship with those who are getting information firsthand and not through social media. So just keep an eye out for some of the stuff that we're putting out. We have established a joint information center in our EOC, the city of Fitchburg. I mean, we may not be operating 24 hours out of our emergency operations center, but we are doing our best to make sure that we are productively putting out information that provides people with something that they can work off of, not something that they get excited over to the point where they're paralyzed by fear. Fear is not going to drive an appropriate response. I think sometimes, though, addressing the overall urgency of their preparedness and what they're doing as a family does help with what we can do as a community, not just as emergency responders.
Yeah, and well said, because it's complicated. It is complicated at best, but knowing behind the scenes that, again, that's what it's part of when it comes to emergency operation, that preparedness. You also did a joint call with Fitzroy EMS earlier this week for PPE, personal protective equipment. We talked a little bit with Fitzroy, but it had some successes right out of the gate, and the call is there continuing to move forward.
Yeah, what we did is we reached out together. Chief Anderson from Fitzroy and I discussed what we could do from a local standpoint. Dane County had already been asking for some equipment. But sometimes there's an emotional connection with your local responders, and I think all too often people are hesitant to donate to a larger organization, not knowing where their equipment is going. So by initiating something from a local level, we were hoping to take advantage of those resources that existed locally. And it was something that we were able to put to good use. We had a company come forward with N95 masks right out of almost immediately on posting that letter. And that will serve every single responder in Fitzroy and Verona Fire Department and Fitchburg Fire Department. We had enough to the point where, we're keeping an eye on what's happening in Dane County, too, because we don't want to hoard equipment to the point where somebody can't use it, but we also want to make sure that we're ready for our response. Obviously, we want to make sure we're prepared for that.
All right, Joe, I appreciate the time as always. Always goes by so quickly. A lot of information to get out there. We'll continue to get you on the show, get you updates, and again, follow on Facebook and through our sites. We're trying to get that information out as quickly as we can as it comes in, so appreciate it.
And if you're going to be interviewing any barbers or anything like that and they need to do a demonstration, just let me know. Maybe I'll make myself available.
Maybe just a comb.
Got it.
All right, Joe Pulvermacher, funny guy, and great, and thank you to everybody in the fire department too. I didn't even get that in there. That we appreciate everything you're doing, and from the bottom of our heart here at Fact TV, and everybody in the community, thank you to the men and women of the fire department and public safety for what you're doing. We appreciate it.
Well, before you sign off, I would like to say we're grateful for the work that you are doing as well, because you're getting a lot of information out to a lot of people, and it's very helpful. So thank you for that. It's a coordinated effort, isn't it?
It has been. It's been a great learning experience, and I feel, for me, it makes me feel safe working with you guys and getting those updates out there. As long as we can keep that communication line open to the public, I think that's all of our goals here. So it's worked very well.
Sounds good.
All right. Joe Pulvermacher, Fitchburg Fire Rescue, your Chief and Director of Emergency Management. We'll be back with another update as soon as we get it. For now, this has been a Talking Fitchburg update.